everyone, I hope you are doing well. So we're back. We're going to do another video. This time we're going to talk about crime. Um so I found a story about Chris Coleman, and I remember hearing about some of this stuff, right? I remember hearing about some pastor or something being connected to murder. I don't remember all the details because this happened when I was in high school. So anyways, let's talk about Chris Coleman. Chris Coleman grew up in an evangelical Christian family in a small suburban town about an hour south of St. Louis, Missouri. His parents, Ron and Connie Coleman, were co-pastors at the Grace Evangelical Church. Shortly after high school, Chris joined the Marines and trained in the K-9 unit as a dog handler. Shortly after high school, Chris joined the Marines and trained in the K-9 unit as a dog handler. He also worked in security during his time in the military, including a guard detail for the U.S. president. That's fucking cool. Sherry Weiss grew up in Cicero, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. As a young girl, she loved baseball and the Chicago White Sox. When she was 10, her family moved to Tampa Bay, Florida, where she played varsity softball and became a cheerleader. She and her best friend, Tara Lentz, graduated high school in 1995. After working briefly as a waitress, Sherry joined the Air Force and worked as a military police officer. You know, you do this if I leave the door open. If I don't leave the door open, you don't come in here. You do this every time. Chris Coleman and Sherry Weiss met in Quantico, Virginia, while they were both attending a dog training seminar and immediately hit it off. The couple started dating, and not long after, Sherry was unexpectedly pregnant. With Chris coming from such a religious background, it was clear the couple needed to marry. In their early 20s, Chris and Sherry eloped and married in Chicago outside her parents' church. Afterward, Chris called his parents and told them the news, but they were clearly not thrilled. He had only introduced Sherry to them as a friend from Chicago. She wasn't a born-again Christian like they were and didn't fit into their evangelical lifestyle. A few months later, Sherry and Chris had their first son, Garrett. 3 years later, in January 2000, his brother Gavin arrived. When Chris was just a small boy, his parents became friends with a woman named Joyce Meyer. This is the lady I was talking about. Joyce was also an evangelical preacher who had worked her way up to become one of the richest money-making preachers in the world. Joyce preached what is known as prosperity theology. There we go. That's what it is. A belief that insists that financial wealth is the will of God and that the more money you give to the church, the more favorably God will look upon you and bring financial riches back to you. Sounds like a cult to me, guys. Sounds like a cult to me. I'm screaming it. Obviously, this type of belief comes with an ample amount of criticism, especially when it comes from someone who flaunts their wealth as extravagantly as Joyce Meyer. To this day, Joyce is still one of the more successful evangelical televangelists, whatever. Not even trying to say that one right. I feel like they're a cult. Not trying to get their shit straight. I don't care. In the world. It was estimated that her businesses were grossing well over $100 million per year while she traveled around the world in her $10 million personal jet, preaching to huge crowds. Her $20 million headquarters in Fenton, Missouri, were adorned with such extravagancies as a 23,000 antique marble toilet. Why do you need a toilet that costs $23,000 to shit? Just saying. You know, there's some people that are homeless and they have to shit in the fucking woods. And this bitch is whatever, dude. I can't with these people. You know, just because you got the money doesn't mean you have maybe give it back. You know, maybe not spend the $23,000, on an antique marble toilet, maybe you should donate that money that you have that you've gotten from people that believe in your shit and give it to people that are less fortunate. Maybe help a brother out. I'm just saying. Don't shoot the messenger. That's all I am. Chris's father, Ron, met with Joyce Meyer at a prayer conference, and Joyce mentioned she needed someone to train her guard dog for her. Ron had the perfect candidate and reintroduced her to his son, Chris. Chris trained Joyce's guard dog and landed himself a job on her security detail. Not long after that, he was promoted to chief of security, a position that paid over $100,000 per year. I mean, that ain't nothing compared to what she's grossing. She's over here grossing $100 million a year, and you're paying your chief of security $100,000 a year. Just saying. I can't with people. Chris, of course, was well versed in the evangelical movement and had even been speaking in tongues since 1996. Okay, you need to go somewhere. I need to get this video done. Sherry had also become part of the evangelical movement and eventually donated her time to Joyce's ministries in the World Outreach Program, while she worked as an emergency medical technician. With Chris's pay raise, the family moved to Columbia Lake, an affluent suburban family development situated on a small lake. It was a close-knit neighborhood where Sherry and the kids made friends with the nearby neighbors. Although one wouldn't know it from the outside, things started turning sour for the couple in early 2008. Sherry had 3 friends that didn't know one another. If they had, things might have turned out differently. On Memorial Day in May 2008, Sherry's neighbor Vanessa and her husband noticed that Sherry had bruises on her upper legs. Vanessa and her husband were worried that Chris was physically abusing her. Sherry typically wore long sleeves and pants, so much of the time they weren't sure if she was bruised or not. Vanessa and her husband hoped for the best, decided it wasn't abuse, and left well enough alone. That's that see something, say something speculation that people keep talking about. And most people don't do it. They fall into the category of the bystander, and that's what happens. Like when there's an accident or something, most people are like in that thought process that someone else is going to help. So they don't do anything. They feel like if they do something, there's going to be too many hands in the pot. And that's not ever the case. See something, say something. And if there's an accident, if you just call 911, okay? At least get help there. There's that. If you don't want to step in and do CPR or any kind of life-saving maneuvers to help anybody, at least call 911 so somebody can come help somebody. I can't tell you how many times that bystander mode is horrible, man. And this is another one of them situations. Instead of saying something, even the wife, I would have pulled her aside and been like, look, I noticed that you had bruises on your legs. Are you okay at home? I get it, I'm a medical assistant. This is one of the questions I ask people anyways. I shouldn't say rightfully, I can do it with no hesitation because I do it on a regular basis anyways for work, right? But even if I wasn't a medical assistant, I'm still going to say something because I want to help. Let me help you. Is he hurting you? Do you need help? Do you want me to help you get away from that situation? But you need to say something. I'm going to say something first. I'm going to extend that olive branch out essentially and be like, look, I see the bruises. Are you okay? Are you in danger at home? Are your kids in danger at home? The fact that she had kids and they didn't say anything, that's red flags to me, guys. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Anyways, around the same time, Sherry confided to a different friend, Megan. I swear to God, that's Megan. Meegan. If that's not Megan, I don't know how to talk. But I'm calling it Megan, not Megan. Megan that Chris was beating her. Sherry sent Megan a text. Chris is gone right now, but he just beat me up. I'm okay though. So she reached out to somebody. Good for her. But what did these people do? That's what I want to know. Did they do the right thing? And knowing how we're hearing about him, obviously not. Megan and her husband pleaded with Sherry to come with them, but Sherry refused to leave Chris. That's that other shit, too, where they feel like they can either change that other person or that things will get better, or, oh, what's that shit called? Where you idealize your captor or your abuser and stuff. So, I mean, it could be a couple of them scenarios, but I'm really not surprised. Instead, she insisted that Chris was sorry and it wouldn't happen again. Has it happened several times before, or is this the first time? Okay, because there's a pattern. They never do it just once. If they do it and they get away with it, they will repeat it. I have been in that scenario myself. It doesn't stop until you leave. And if there's kids involved, you don't want to expose them to that, so you leave. You outweigh all your pros and cons there. I don't care. You got to do what's best for you and your children. So Sherry's third friend was her best friend from high school, Tara Lentz. Tara was now divorced and living in Tampa Bay, Florida, working as a cocktail waitress and jumping from boyfriend to boyfriend. She sounds like a great friend. In October of 2008, Sherry called Tara to tell her that Joyce Meyer was having a conference in Tampa Bay and that Tara should attend. By then, Sherry had become quite religious and thought not only that Tara's lifestyle was reckless, but also that Joyce's preaching could help her. Chris and Tara had already met when Tara visited them in Quantico, back before they were married. Sherry suggested she meet with Chris, since he would be flying in a few days before the conference to make security preparations. Sherry's suggestion, however, was a mistake. Chris and Tara met for dinner and drinks and didn't waste any time starting an affair. By the time the conference was over, Chris had asked Joyce Meyer if he could spend a few extra days in Tampa Bay. Immediately after Chris returned from Florida, he got on his laptop and created a document titled All About Tara. He typed out her birthday, her dog's birthday, her height, weight, clothing sizes, favorite perfume, favorite sports teams, and favorite ice cream flavors. He even wrote down what their daughter's name would be, Zoe Lynn Coleman. This guy's creepy as hell, dude. What a creep. And you're married. Oh my God. You know what? Just wait till Joyce Meyer hears about all this. She's going to have a field day. Because this is what she preaches against. Remember, they have to be in the same religion. They have to practice the same religion that they do. Essentially a cult, guys. So the heading of the document was November 5th, 2008, the day that Tara changed my life. Almost immediately after Chris arrived home from Florida, he and Joyce received identical email threats. Someone had sent 4 short emails within 5 minutes. Date: Friday the 14th, November 2008, from Fuck Chris, destroychris@gmail.com, to dmeyer@joycemeyer.org, joycemeyer@joycemeyer.org, davemeyer@joycemeyer.org, danmeyer@joycemeyer.org, davidmeyer@joycemeyer.org, ccoleman@joycemeyer.org. Subject: Fuck Chris's family. They are dead. Body: I'm sure this will make it to someone in the company. If you jackasses are like any other company, this will be someone's account. Pass this on to Chris. Tell Joyce to stop preaching the bullshit or Chris's family will die. If I can't get to Joyce, then I will get to someone close to her. And if I can't get to him, then I will kill his wife and kids. I know Joyce's schedule, so then I know Chris's schedule. If Joyce doesn't quit preaching the bullshit, then they will die. During the Houston conference, I will kill them all as they sleep. If I don't hit there, then I will kill them during the book tour or the trip to India. I know where he lives, and I know they are alone. Fuck them all, and they will die soon. Tell that motherfucker next time to let me talk to Joyce. She needs to hear what I have to say, and now she will. Date: Friday 14th, November 2008. From Fuck Chris. We're not going through all that again. Subject: go to hell. Body: your family is done. Date: Friday 14th of November 2008. We're not going through all that. Subject: Houston death. Body: they will be done while you are gone at the Houston conference. I know you will be out of town. Date: Friday the 14th of November 2008. Subject: Houston death. Body: tell Chris his family is dead. I know his schedule, and they will die. Next time that motherfucker will let me talk to Joyce. Chris immediately reported these threats to the local police. The police force in Columbia was small, but to be safe, they assigned extra patrols to drive by the Coleman's house daily. Meanwhile, things at the Coleman house were getting worse. Chris had started to direct more hostility toward Sherry. On November 25th, just a few days before Thanksgiving, Chris cornered Sherry in the kitchen and said he wanted a divorce. He told her that she and the boys were getting in the way of his career. Sherry didn't want a divorce. She said she still loved him and asked her friends to pray for her and her marriage. In mid-December, Chris had to take another business trip to Florida and met up with Tara once again in an Orlando hotel. This time they exchanged promise rings. On December 21st, Sherry called Chris and begged him to come home for the holidays, but he refused. Instead, he told Sherry that she and the kids were keeping him from realizing God's destiny. He eventually came home on December 24th. The following week, on January 2nd, Chris called the local police. He had received another threat letter. This time, the threat was typed on plain paper and hand-delivered to their mailbox on his curb. Sherry was terrified. The letter read, "Fuck you. Deny your God publicly or else. No more opportunities. Time is running out for you and your family. Have a good time in India, motherfucker." Interestingly, both publicly and opportunities were misspelled. The city of Columbia was just a small town with a small police force and only 2 detectives. One of the detectives, Justin Barlow, happened to live across the street from the Colemans and was assigned to the case. Detective Barlow set up a camera from his own house facing the Coleman's house and mailbox and assigned extra patrols in the neighborhood. That April, Chris had another trip with the Joyce Meyer Ministries. This time was to Maui, Hawaii, and of course he invited Tara. Chris and Tara made sure that none of his co-workers spotted the 2 of them together. He knew that, because of the spiritual criteria clause, he would lose his job if he was caught having an affair. During their time in Maui, Chris and Tara made more plans. Tara gave Chris a deadline for serving divorce papers to Sherry, May 4th. When Chris returned from Maui and checked the mailbox on April 27th, he found another threatening letter. This letter read, "Fuck you. I am giving you the last warning. You have not listened to me, and you have not changed your ways. I have warned you to stop traveling and to stop carrying on with this fake religious life of stealing people's money. You think you are so special to do what you do, protecting or think you are protecting her. She is a bitch and not worth you doing it. Stop today or else. I know your schedule. You can't hide from me ever. I'm always watching. I know when you leave in the morning, and I know when you stay home. I saw you leave this morning. I will be watching. You better stop traveling and doing what you are doing. This is my last warning. Your worst nightmare is about to happen." Chris said his security camera caught someone putting the letter into the mailbox, but he didn't have a way of recording it. Strangely, Detective Barlow's camera across the street saw no activity around the mailbox. When May 4th rolled around, Chris called Tara to tell her that his attorney said there were typos in the divorce papers and he couldn't serve them to Sherry today. But he should be able to serve her the divorce papers the following day. Of course, there was no attorney and no divorce papers. That evening, Detective Barlow's camera, aimed at the Coleman mailbox, caught Chris, Gavin, and Garrett playing baseball in the front yard just before sunset. The boys asked their father if they could stay the night at neighbor Brandon's house to celebrate his birthday, but Chris refused, telling them it wasn't a good night. Brandon's mother was surprised since the boys had been staying the night with him for the past several years on that specific night. On the morning of May 5th, 2009, just 12 hours after Chris played catch with his sons in the front yard, Detective Barlow got an early morning phone call that he would never forget. Chris called at 6:43 a.m. while driving home from the St. Louis County Gym and asked Detective Barlow to check on his house. Chris had been trying to contact Sherry by phone, but she wasn't answering. He said that Sherry and the kids should have been up by then, and he was worried. Detective Barlow called for backup, crossed the street, and knocked on the door. No answer. When his backup arrived just a few minutes later, they walked to the back of the house, where they found a window to the basement wide open, the screen sitting next to the house. That's kind of funny right there, guys. So the basement window was wide open, and then the screen was sitting next to the house. I don't know how many times I've heard that, but usually I hear that people cut the screen, not casually nicely take it off and then set it to the side, whatever. The officers called for more backup and crawled through the window with guns drawn. As they climbed the stairs into the house, the smell of spray paint immediately hit them. What they found as they entered the house was horrific. The scene looked like something that resembled the Manson murders. The house walls were spray painted with rants similar to the letters and emails Chris had received. You have paid. I saw you leave. Fuck you, bitch, punished. Fuck you, I'm always watching. As they walked up the stairs to the second floor, Officer Don John found 31-year-old Sherry naked on her bed in the master bedroom with a black eye and ligature marks around her neck. He put his hand under her shoulder to lift her and check if she was breathing, but rigor mortis had already set in and her body was stiff. Officer Patton entered Gavin's room, where he found the 9-year-old face down in his Spider-Man pajamas. His skin was purplish and cold to the touch, stiff. Fuck you was spray painted on the sheets covering him. Detective Barlow went into 11-year-old Garrett's room. He, too, was cold and stiff. His lips were blue, his skin was gray, and he had ligature marks around his neck. Chris was only 7 minutes away when he called, but it took him almost 20 minutes to arrive at the scene. Several squad cars were parked on the street and police tape surrounded the house. Why did it take him so long to get home if he was only 7 minutes away when he called? Why did it take him 20? Just wondering, guys. Just wondering. You know, was he driving really slow? Did he stop? I don't understand. I just don't understand any of that. When Chris arrived, Detective Barlow told him that his family was dead. He didn't attempt to go upstairs, and he didn't ask how they died. He just sat in the driveway and sobbed. He then took out his BlackBerry to call his work and his father. When investigators brought Chris in for his statement, things didn't seem to add up immediately. Chris claimed he left the house that morning to go to the gym at 5:43 and claimed his family were alive and were when he left. However, rigor mortis had already set in by the time the bodies were discovered, just over an hour later. A forensic pathologist took liver temperatures on the bodies and determined all three died between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. During the interrogation, and despite the room being warm, Chris claimed to be very cold and asked for a blanket. However, when investigators gave him a blanket, Chris only covered his arms. That's when the detectives noticed the scratches on his arms. Investigators asked Chris about his relationship with Sherry, and he admitted to having some communication problems, but nothing that bad. They asked if anything was going on in their relationship that Sherry would not approve of, and he mentioned that he texted Tara a ton. However, he insisted he wasn't having an affair and that Tara was just someone to talk to. What Chris didn't know was that the investigators already knew about Tara. They had already spoken to the St. Petersburg police, who were interrogating Tara at the same time. Tara was given a very different story of their relationship, though. A major case squad was assigned to the case with 25 investigators. When investigators went through his cell phone and computers, the evidence against Chris Coleman began to pile up. On Chris and Tara's cell phones, police found X-rated photos and videos they had taken and sent back and forth to each other. Investigators found sex videos of the two of them in Hawaii. In fact, Chris had sent one of their sex videos to his father, the evangelical preacher. Why did he do that? That doesn't even make sense to me. Your dad's a preacher and you sent him a sex video of you and the woman you're having an affair with, essentially. I don't understand that. Their cell phones also revealed that Chris was texting Tara in the interrogation room. When examining Chris's computer, they found the All About Tara document. However, more damning was a further analysis of his computer where the forensics team found evidence that the threatening emails had come from Chris's computer. The forensics team even recovered proof of the typed letters. They additionally found that Chris commonly misspelled the word opportunities in several other documents, misspelled the same way. There was also the issue of Detective Barlow's camera. It had been pointed at the house that night and caught no one entering or leaving it besides Chris. When searching the house, investigators noticed that many windows had been unlocked. It seemed strange that someone who was the head of security for a large company, let alone the recipient of personal death threats just days prior, would leave windows open and unlocked. Also in the house, they found a hardware store receipt for a can of red spray paint, paid for by Chris. Even the gym that Chris went to that morning was suspicious. The gym was unusually far away, and Chris had only ever been to that gym 2 times before. Moreover, he joined the gym just a few days after he started the affair with Tara. It seemed as if he had begun planning the murders immediately. Investigators traced the route between Chris's home and the gym. They found a latex glove stained with red spray paint and the faceplate from Chris's home security video recorder on the side of the road. They also found a piece of balling twine that had been tied into a noose. The Colemans had bales of hay in their backyard, and one of the bales had a piece missing. The piece they found forensically matched that bale. Although this seemed a massive amount of evidence, it was still largely circumstantial. One wonders, why go through all of this trouble? Rather than killing your entire family, why not just get a divorce? The problem was Chris's job. Due to the clause in the contract he'd signed, Chris knew if he were found to be an adulterer or sought a divorce, he would most likely lose his high-paying job. Chris Coleman was arrested on May 19th, 2 weeks after the murders. He was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and pleaded not guilty. Despite previously having a $100,000 per year job, the judge determined that Chris was indigent or poor, and he was assigned 2 experienced death penalty defense attorneys. Because of the nature of the murders, the media attention was massive, and the public was outraged. So much so that Chris feared for his life and wore a bulletproof vest when coming to trial. The media publicly also meant that jurors were selected from Pickenyville, Illinois, more than an hour away. They were bussed in for each day of the trial. The trial began on April 25th, 2011, almost 2 years after the murders. During the trial, prosecutors introduced the X-rated pictures and video. Tara showed up with bodyguards and, while on the stand, wore the promise ring that Chris had given her. I can't with these people. I just can't. Well, just can't. The prosecution also called Joyce Meyer to testify that, indeed, if she had known that he was having an affair, it would have jeopardized his job status. Several of Sherry's friends testified that she had confided in them that Chris was beating her up, that he wanted a divorce, and even that she knew Chris was having an affair with Tara. However, the most critical piece of evidence was the time of death. Prosecutors showed the jury that Chris's story of the events didn't match the forensic evidence of the time of death. Jurors began deliberations on May 4th, 2011, and returned with a guilty verdict on all 3 counts. As a result, Chris Coleman was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. To this day, Chris Coleman insists he is innocent. His parents still stand by him, and he has unsuccessfully tried to appeal his conviction. Prosecutors believe Tara had no knowledge of Chris's plans. And that is the end of that story, guys. This is going to be a hell of a long story. I'm real sorry now. But it's culty, right? It's culty. I get so many cult vibes from this story. It's not even funny. You got the church telling you that you have to be with somebody that's, in that church or associated with that church or whatever. And they throw in the religious aspect where if you cheat, it's adultery, and you're going to lose your job. So, I mean, God, dude, it's just sick. That poor wife and them innocent kids, dude. Innocent kids. They did nothing wrong. And their dad killed them so he could start a whole new life. It's sick. Chris Watts did the same thing. I guess that's why people were calling this the original fucking Chris Watts or whatever is what I kept reading when I was looking up shit for this story. But anyways, guys, on that note, Zeusy's over here trying to, I don't know what are you doing, Zeus? Well, anyways. Anyways, guys, on that note, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, give me a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. And as always, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.